State's President, Defense Counsel, and the defendant are all present. We're here for sentencing in the state of Florida versus Stephen Wade Wilson. Case number 19 CF 568.
Grace Gardner and Mr.
Now, his facial position is very similar to last time. He's got his nose in the air. He's got his head cocked back a little bit. We tend to do that to show people we think we are above them, that we're better than the situation we're in. So non-verbally, he very much seems to be trying to express that he's better than everything going on around him. He's tapping his feet a little bit. There's nervous energy there. But he's trying not to show that. It seems that he's trying to be as stoic as possible, to sit as still as possible, but that nervous energy is still coming out. Predominantly, he's showing his neck. So when we show people our neck, that shows that we don't feel threatened by them. It's a way to say, look, this is a vulnerable part of me. I can expose it to you, and I feel no threat from you at all. Although I don't think that's necessarily true, because as you can see, he's swallowing a lot as he's doing that, which probably means there's a lot of anxiety. But I think that maybe that's what he's trying to show off.
Murder was cold, calculated, and premeditated. The defendant inflicted serious physical and emotional pain to the victims.
You see him looking around right now. Now, there's some people who are so intense, they will just stare ahead, not blinking. Nothing seems to affect them. For him, I think that looking at the judge causes too much emotion. It's too intense. So even though he doesn't move around, even though he's not doing a lot of self-soothing behaviors, maintaining that gaze feels too intense. So he has to look around some, particularly right now as the sentence is getting ready to get handed down. This is that on this side of his mouth, it looks like there's a little bit of a smile. Now, I think that is intentional. I think that he wants people to think that he's pleased, that he's happy, he doesn't care what's going on around him. I think that he wants to give off that impression. So when you see somebody doing a half-cocked smile, that's an attempt to look okay, attempt to look satisfied. It doesn't tend to be a genuine emotion. Now, it's interesting. As they were talking about his childhood, you finally saw a little bit of a reaction. Let's watch this right here.
Raised him in a supportive and loving environment. Defendant did not resist law enforcement when arrested and confessed fully.
Now that look right there, that tends to be stress. We tend to bunch our lips together when we're feeling stressed. So talking about his family or talking about his upbringing may actually be evoking some kind of reaction
To both murders. The court is...
And then afterward, he lowers his chin. His neck is no longer quite as vulnerable as it was. So there does seem to be some unconscious behavior that comes along with hearing the judge talk about this.
Further, he then drove to an empty lot, strangling her into unconsciousness.
Now, we're seeing something very disturbing right now. He doesn't do a lot with his mouth, but as the crime is being described, you see him licking his lips. Oftentimes there's excitement that comes with that. But the way that he's licking his lips right now look like he's probably enjoying what's being said to some degree. Watch this again.
When she tried to exit. He then drove to an empty lot, strangling her into unconsciousness at least one additional time on the way there.
Once again, you're going to see his feet tapping here, and that shows a somewhat subdued version of anxiety. Does that mean that he's got nerves? Probably, but it's managed. It's something that's not impulsive. Once again, you see those big breaths in, probably means that he's more anxious than he appears, which lends further credence to the idea that he is capable of controlling himself. So once again, the idea that he has a really low barrier to being impulsive and that he can't control it at all, his behavior right now seems to suggest differently. And you notice he looks at the camera quite often. He did this last time as well. Part of the reason for that is that he's putting forth an effort to make sure he looks like he wants to look for everybody that's watching. As I've talked about before, you don't get tattoos like this because you don't want people to see them. He cares about how he looks, and he's interested in people perceiving him in a very specific way. He's looking around, but he does seem to be trying really hard to sit still because it would take a lot of effort hearing this to move so little.
Mitigating circumstances presented by the defendant.
Now, you may have just noticed he actually just gained a little bit more distance from the judge. Watch this right here.
Mitigating circumstances presented by the defendant.
See, he's scooting a little bit further back. This feels too intense to him. The emotions are probably building up too much, so he is trying to gain more emotional distance by getting physical distance.
I have prepared a written sentencing order, which I will file contemporaneously.
The more you see those swallows, the more anxious he's probably feeling.
Given the facts of the case, nothing in defendant's background or mental state would suggest that a death sentence is inappropriate. Under the totality of the circumstances and evidence, the court finds no basis to override the jury's verdict. The totality of the circumstances warrants that the defendant, Wade Stephen Wilson, be sentenced to death for each count of first-degree murder.
So you see, he starts to move his head around a little bit.
By sentence to death. Count 5, the burglary of a dwelling.
but then he looks at the camera, reminds he's being watched, and then he goes back to that default position. That is how he wants to be seen. Chin up in the air, nose in the air. That is the look he's looking for.
Count 1, first-degree murder of Christine Melton. The defendant is hereby sentenced to death.
There are no words to describe the absolutely lovely Christine Ann Melton. She was a daughter, a sister, an aunt, a niece, and a cousin. If you were with her, you laughed. She was loved, and her life had value. She was a relief to your soul just to sit next to her. Christine was remarkably funny, had a quick wit, and an entirely unique personality. Children loved her because Christine was good and they could feel it. Every relationship or friendship she had was special because she was part of it.
Count 4, first-degree murder of Diane Ruiz. The defendant is hereby sentenced to death.
I'm Diane Ruiz's youngest child. I was only 14 years old when she passed. My father unfortunately passed away when I was only 11 years old. My mother was all I had left. My mother will never get the chance to see me get married, get to see me graduate college as a first generation graduate, get to see me get my first real job. During college, I was sent to the ER for the first time. I got into my first car accident, and the only person I wanted to call was my mom, or how she went missing. I trusted my gut so much. Everything told me that she was coming home, and I haven't been able to trust her again. Or how when I was told she was missing while walking home from my bus stop, or how everybody in my town knew that she was dead before me, or how on my 15th birthday I almost killed myself because I couldn't bear the idea without turning 15 without my mom. I lived 5 years without her, and not a single day has gone by where I haven't been able to not think about her. My mother only had love in her heart, only wanted the best for me, and nothing that happened to her was ever deserved, and she just wanted to live a normal life.
The totality of the circumstances warrants that the defendant, Wade Stephen Wilson, be sentenced to death for each count of first-degree murder. Accordingly, it is ordered to the judge that the defendant is hereby sentenced to death. Count 2, grand theft of a motor vehicle. The defendant.
Bye-bye, Wade.
Oh, well, Mr. Wilson, you have an opportunity, just like during any of the other phases of. Well, let me just finish real quick. Any other phases during the case, if you want to address the court, I would permit you to do that. Obviously, everything's recorded.
So one of the things that's so interesting is that when he's trying to engage, his body language is almost exaggerated. He's nodding very strongly, shaking his head very strongly. He wants you to know exactly how he feels. So the fact that he's able to rein all of this in and sit so still really does say something about his ability to control his behaviors.
But you would have that opportunity if you wish. No one can prevent you from addressing the court if you wish to, and no one can make you address the court if you don't want to. So it is a decision that's solely left up to you if you want to address the court or not.
Not today. Later, when I come back, I will. Today,
okay.
No, I won't.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
It's over, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye,
Bye-bye, Wade. Bye-bye.
So now the prison bus will be coming on one of the designated days, probably if not this week, then next week. It'll take him down to the Department of Corrections, and he'll be put on death row. And it sucks there. It really does. So have fun, Wade. We'll see you, buddy. Have fun. Good night.